Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Films Not Movies podcast with me, Aaron.
And me, Charlotte.
This week we're going for a triple header of films to looking at. One currently out at the cinema, which is Dunkirk, and then also looking back on Free Fire and a film on Netflix called The Circle.
So first up, we're going to talk about Dunkirk, which is a film that we've been looking forward to seeing for a while, ever since we knew it was being made, really. It's directed by Christopher Nolan, he of Batman trilogy fame, also Inception and Interstellar.
Yeah, and a host of others, but they'll be the most recognisable ones, I imagine.
Yep, and it stars Fionn Whitehead, Harry Styles, Tom Hardy and Mark Rylance.
I think it's Finn Whitehead, by the way.
Oh, is it?
The pronunciation of that.
Sorry, Finn.
Yeah, so the basic outline of the story is that...
Which is obviously based on real events.
The story of Dunkirk, but if you're like me and didn't actually really know it very well, the basic outline is that Allied soldiers from Belgium, the British Empire and France are surrounded by the German army and evacuated a fierce battle from World War II, and this is on the beaches of Dunkirk, which is in northern France, so they're trying to get back to the UK from there. Yeah,
so basically they've been cornered to the beach, more or less, by the German forces, and they need to get out to safety, so they've got a chance of fighting the whole rest of the war that's going on. They need to get out, and it just focuses on three different people, really, isn't it? Three groups of people.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say three different people. It's almost like three scenarios: one land, one sea, one air, really.
Yeah, true.
And they, in quite a traditional Christopher Nolan sense, they're set on different timelines going at different speeds, which you will know that is one of his tropes from Inception in particular. And I can almost see how he thought this would be a good way to do this story, where some parts of it are over, it's kind of covering a longer time frame, whereas the planes in the air is pretty much in real time. So yeah, as I say, it's basically feels like a war film, and it is a war film set in war, but there's not that much war stuff going on because it is almost just an escape movie. I think of this film and I think, who do you see in it? And you see Allied troops. You don't see any Germans.
Yeah,
like the only Germans you see are the planes in the sky.
Yeah.
Now that's quite a challenge to set yourself.
Yeah.
To set this story with this absolute fear and this looming threat, and never actually show the enemy. I guess that's a good way of doing it.
I thought it was really interesting, actually, because I think it's probably closest to what a soldier would see, because if you're fighting in the war, it's probably pretty rare that you get up close and personal with a member of the opposite side. You're not having a sword fight. You're not looking into their eyes. You don't know their backstory. It's all quite faceless, and you're just dealing with what you're dealing with at every moment in time, and that's what we see. And you also don't really see much of the higher up level either. There's a tiny bit on the British side, but you've not got kind of Nazi
not generals,
captains or generals all
in war rooms moving pawns around.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that
There's none of that. There's none of that. Let's head them off here, or it's literally on the ground or in the air or on the sea, but kind of through the real people's eyes, and you're just immersed in it, and you don't even get any backstory on the parties that you focused on. There's no...
He's left his wife at home.
Exactly, there's no...
Elvis music in the background.
Yeah, I know, and that's the way Hollywood always does it, you know, is to wring as much emotion out of it as possible. But it didn't do that, and I really appreciated it, and it made it seem a lot more real. It
did. And it actually made, because why I was hesitant to say it's based around three characters or three sets of characters is because you barely get to know the characters who are in it. There's such a small amount of dialogue, and you'd think for something like this, it's like, well, it's a story about the soldiers on the ground. You think it would all be about their kind of banding together, but all the banding together and stuff that they do is through their actions. There is some dialogue, but it is... I'd love to see how long the script is for this. Probably a couple of sides of A4 maximum. But I feel like that really helps just make you feel immersed, that almost like you're a soldier also running around in this hellscape. And it's so extremely visual, and the sound is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a real cinema experience.
Definitely.
And I think...
I'm glad we saw it on the big screen.
Yeah, and even though it's a film that I would like to see again, I probably wouldn't want to watch it at home because it is so visual, and I think it is definitely one that if you get the opportunity to, or it sounds like something you'd like, cinema and probably the biggest screen and the biggest sound system you possibly can, because it has come out in a specifically filmed IMAX version. We didn't see that, but people have said how spectacular that is. It just completely immersing you, and I can completely see how, because it basically had that effect just on a normal cinema screen.
Yeah, completely. So obviously it shows the horror and brutality of war, but it's not grueling.
No.
It's not. It's obviously hard to watch in places, but it's not hard as in, I don't know if I can withstand this to watch. It's not overly... Nothing is overly done. The sentimentality is not overly done. The gore and the horror is real, but not...
There's almost no gore.
No, I don't mean gore. I mean just the horrificness of what's happening. It is horrific, but it's not unwatchable. So you stay with it. It's not... Nothing is done too much.
Yeah. I think what it does well is that it gives you this constant fear, this constant sense of dread and
powerlessness as
and
well.
Powerlessness, and I was going to say claustrophobia, but powerlessness is probably the better word for it, where you can feel that when the tides has turned against the characters, there is nothing in their power that they can do. There's not
you can't be a hero and fix the situation, because it is what it is.
And it shows how fragile life is in that situation and how expendable supposedly allowed for people to be, where it's just, that boat's crashed or that boat has been torpedoed, so that's 10,000 people just dead and there's absolutely nothing anyone can do to save them. And it's just a bit like... It's
just like, what's the next thing now? How can we next try and live with,
It does a really good way of showing scale of the kind of losses that were involved in that kind of conflict, but not making them seem a minor detail. It's like you really feel like, my God, loads of people suffered there, but without, as you said before, without it seeming grueling or... Yeah. It's horrific, but not in a negative way. It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
But
it's just really well done.
Yeah.
And it really brought home to me how horrific war is, which is not news, but...
It is often glorified.
Yeah. And there isn't any of that.
No.
And I felt I was upset by this film at points where you're not necessarily not at the big moments where you would expect it to, just because it was just sinking in what it's like and what everybody went through, and it made me go away and read up about what happened. So I think it's quite an important film in that way, particularly for, well, certainly for me. I don't have very good knowledge of World War II or everything that went on, so I feel like I learned a lot.
Yeah, it's not, obviously Christopher Nolan, well, maybe not obviously, but Christopher Nolan is a British director, and I feel like he's got to the stage in his career where he's such a big name that he can demand that he can make a film like this. And I think it's really great, and not from a patriotic reason, but to see these British stories that you only normally see on British TV or small British films. So for it to be a huge Hollywood production of something, because... Okay, it's not like we're neglected in films, but normally a World War II film is all about the all-American hero type stuff. And not only that, it isn't making out the British to be all-conquering heroes. It's about saving our skins, and that everyone who was trying to save themselves isn't necessarily out to save other people as well. There's people who clearly panicked, saved themselves ahead of their friends and...
Yeah. And who can say how you would react in those crazy situations?
And I think that it does a good way of showing where people would help each other and where people would be selfish in a very natural kind of way.
Very much so. And I think the three stories intertwining, not even stories really, like slices of their lives as they go through this thing that's going on, work really well, and they complement each other really well. Some just in terms of volume and dynamics. Yeah. It was just the perfect complement to each other, and it didn't linger on any one for too long. It kept your interest because there aren't false stories woven into it in terms of backstories, and it's quite simple in a way, the film.
Oh yeah.
So just that having three different focuses just kept the momentum going, but still making it seem really real. And the use of music was quite sparing.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, music in the sense of music is sparing, but obviously sound is used extremely effectively all the way through.
Well, I think one of the things that stands out for me, and I think maybe you not describing it as music is part of what I'm feeling in it, is that the score is absolutely unrelenting, pulsating throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
But whether you could describe that as a traditional film score, I don't know, because it is almost blending into the
It's like
sounds.
sounds.
Into
Yeah.
the sounds of the film. It's this pulsating, ticking, kind of anxious
menace.
It's not. There's a couple of bits that you could describe as a score, but not much. It's generally just a classic, as Hans Zimmer has become in his later years, simplifying, but
Down to the bare bones, but making that really
bold,
work.
bold, brash, really suited this film, was having a soundtrack like that, more so than I think he's done with the soundtracks because he's worked with Nolan pretty consistently for the last few films. I think this is the one that's fit the best with the type of film that it is. So that's great. So quick word on some of the performances in there. As we said, it's not that dialogue heavy, so it's hard to say, well, it's not hard to say who did well, but they're quite different acting jobs. I mean, Tom Hardy in a Spitfire pilot was basically acting with his eyebrows.
Yeah, didn't see that much of him.
His mouth was pretty much covered and he was going, not quite to Bane levels, but completely believable as that character.
Yeah.
I think the character who does the most heavy lifting is Mark Rylance as a civilian.
Yeah, he was superb, I thought.
I think he does a really good, like, mature job, and just he does a lot of the, not explaining the plot, but kind of just holding your hand a little bit through the bits where there is no one else saying anything.
Yeah,
and
and he was the sort of wise, he understood the weight of everything that was going on, and it just see it on his face, like
there was
weighing him down, what was going on, and that he just had to help. And
a really great performance by him, as you'd expect. Now, one performance which, to be fair, I've not heard criticised a lot, but I'm going to criticise a little bit, was the use of Harry Styles as one of the, I assume, privates on the beach. It wasn't bad.
no, I wouldn't criticize his performance. I would criticize the casting, really.
But that's the problem, isn't it? It's not the performance, it's the casting. But if you know who Harry Styles is, you know what he looks like, and because almost everyone else in the film wasn't
crazy big names.
Yeah, not known names. It made him stick out like a sore thumb, and it was just really hard to get my head around. And I'm sure people say, "Oh, it's fine," but if it made me feel like that, if it made me think, "Oh, here's Harry Styles," rather than it had been another actor, and I could have just said, "Right, here's Joe," or whatever the character's name is. And so
it just lifted you out of the realism of it a little bit, because it's a very immersive film, and that just pulled you out of it, like Ed Sheeran in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, similar type things.
Not necessary, there's plenty of
yeah.
actors that would have done it as well, and he did do a decent job. And we did say to each other, we're glad that his character wasn't a kind of true blue superhero type heartthrob, because that would have really grated. But his character wasn't like that, which made it more acceptable to me. But still, I would have preferred just an unknown.
Yes, just a general bod would have been great. Like the others were on the whole, most of the other lads on the beach. Great stuff. So, as you can probably tell, I really enjoyed that film. I was excited about it for a long time. Well, as soon as I knew it was announced, I was like, this could be really good, and I'm glad that it lived up to expectation. I think Christopher Nolan's worked well here because he's a pretty humorless director, and this is a film that doesn't need any humour to carry it. You could argue that some of the Batman films and stuff that he did, the lack of humour of them may have taken away from it, but this is something that didn't need those scenes.
Yeah.
And that was I felt like this is almost the perfect director for this film, and it couldn't have been anything more than it was. That said, I'm only going to give it 4 stars, and it's not just for the Harry Styles thing. I just feel it lacked, it could have done something more, just like a little bit of spark missing that make it something that I would just be like completely destroyed in a good way by. I felt pretty affected by it afterwards, but not quite to the level that could be. But 4 stars still great. I definitely say see it at the cinema if you can.
Yeah, I'm also going to give it 4. I thought it was fantastic, and there were moments when I wasn't bored, but I kind of appreciate that it didn't Hollywoodize it too much and really make it zippy and zingy and over drama and all that kind of thing. So I'm kind of glad that it was what it was, but there was moments where it just kind of didn't have momentum consistently all the way through, but just fantastic. I mean, I cried buckets, and having said that, it has to be seen at the cinema, which it does. I kind of wish I was at home on my own on the sofa so that I could have really gone for it, because it was a tearjerker. But yeah, fantastic.
So in a complete change of pace, next up we're talking about Free Fire. Now, we actually saw Free Fire in about February.
As a preview.
As a preview, which we meant to cover in an earlier episode, but around the time it was out of the cinema, tons of other things were out, and we covered them instead. But Free Fire is out this Monday coming, August 7th. So that's why we're talking about it now. It's basically coming out on DVD. Perfect time to talk about it. So Free Fire is directed by Ben Wheatley, who's a British director who also has directed Sightseers, High Rise and Kill List. Not the biggest names in the world, but you may remember High Rise from our top 5 review of 2016.
Yeah. Did we both put it at number 1 as our film of last year?
Neither of us put it as number 1.
Oh, did we not?
I put it as number 5, and I think you put it as number 3.
Oh.
Both our number 1 was Room.
Of
and
course.
talking of Room star Brie Larson, see, good link there, plays the character of Justine. Armie Hammer plays Ord. And,
Not a tube of toothpaste.
And for the second time this week, even though we didn't mention him in the first one, Cillian Murphy plays Chris. There's also tons of other characters in this film, but they're the 3 most probably recognisable names. So
it's a real sort of ensemble cast, isn't it?
It's an ensemble, yeah.
There's no real lead. It's just everybody chipping in, and everybody being hilarious in their own way.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll try and give a synopsis for this. There isn't too much in terms of story. It's set in Boston in the 70s, and a meeting in a deserted warehouse between 2 gangs doing an arms deal turns into a shootout and a game of survival. And that's the whole film. It's pretty pulpy, it's pretty schlocky, if that's the right word. It's all about the soundtrack, it's about the clothes, it's 70s, it's style, it's guns, it's one-liners.
Violence.
It's violence. It's just an absolute hoot. It's great in the cinema because it's loud, it's bombastic, but if this is a film you could watch at home, munching popcorn, laughing at the one-liners, and having a great time with it. I mean, I wouldn't say it's for everyone because the violence is extremely violent. Mm-hmm. It's gun shoots, but there's wounds, there's...
Yeah, other kinds of violence as well, not just guns.
Yeah. After the arms deal goes south, the 2 groups of peeps want to kill each other, but there's
pretty much do.
And the shots are as bad as stormtroopers. They miss all the time, but probably like it would be the gun. I think they've done a really great job with the sound in this film. The guns are just bonkers loud.
Yeah, I think in our cinema showing they turned them up even louder. I mean, it was deafening. Imagine being in a self-contained metal warehouse with shotguns.
I think what really added to it, and I hope it does come across like this on the DVD release, is that the first gunshot is probably 20 minutes into it, and he's just testing out a gun. And up until that point, he's like, "Oh, this is a film," and then he just does a bullet, and it's just like, bang! Oh, bloody hell, that was loud. And then it basically stays that loud for the rest of it, but not in a way that hurts your ears, but in a way that it's just like, oh, they're getting stuck in here.
Ballsy loud.
Yeah. So Brie Larson, as she was in Room, it was an extremely emotional, extremely serious performance. I'm pretty sure she was cast in this before she'd won her Oscar, because it seems like
she blew up just after.
So it seems like a great coup for Ben Wheatley to have someone of that name. I mean, Armie Hammer and Cillian Murphy are also big names, but just because she was off the back of winning an Oscar, it was right at her height, and it's a great performance by all these people because they just get to have so much fun.
Yeah.
Great
the guy
lines.
from Flight of the Conchords in it as well.
Yes, Murray from Flight of the Conchords.
I know he's got a name, just call him Murray.
Reese Darby, that's his name.
Yeah.
Sounds more Welsh than Aussie with that name, Reese. But yes, he's in it as well. There's loads of...
New Zealand.
Yes, sorry. There'll be loads of people who recognise in it. And yeah, it's almost hard to say too much more about it. If you know Ben Wheatley's films, it's got a lot of his previous style to it. Dark humour, the extreme violence, especially in something like Kill List, which is brutally dark and British. I definitely feel like he's moving further away from that classic style, but he's moving into something not more family friendly, but something more...
A bit lighter, but
in a good way. He's not selling out, he's just adapting his style.
It's more like the violence in Sightseers, where it's sort of so unexpected that it's really hilarious.
Yes.
And the way people deal with what's going on is really hilarious because people are not like, oh my god, this has just happened. It's more like, well, I'm going to do more of the same. And quite unique to him, that sense of humour. And it is right up our street. It definitely really tickles us, that style of humour.
Yeah, and I think it's, as you said, the reaction to violence, similar to Sightseers, which was a a film from a few years ago which was set around in the British countryside around camping basically, but campers turning into serial killers. Crazy storylines, and the violence is portrayed in a similar way here. Someone gets shot, it's like, oh my god, I've been shot.
It's not like, you bastard!
It's like, you shot me in the foot, what are you doing? And like, I shot you in the foot. Well, I mean, but actually funny, not like that. Yeah, so it's just, I wouldn't quite say it's non-stop all the way through. I think one thing is that it does drag on just a little bit too long around the middle section where they're just endlessly shooting at each
and I'm
other.
going to dare to say something about Ben Wheatley here, which might be a bit controversial,
Go
but
on.
I feel like this is one that he has written, isn't it?
Well, his wife, Amy, writes all the films that he directs.
Right, okay. But some of them, obviously, like High Rise, are based on a novel. I feel like they're ideas films, they're not plot films. And we watched, is it called A Field in England?
Yeah.
That is one concept spun out into a whole film.
Yeah.
When perhaps it should not have been a whole film. I don't know, controversial. And then I feel like this, although it's more successfully made into a full-length film, you know, it's just one smallish idea which is just spun out well, but there's not that much going on in terms of a storyline.
No, I completely agree, and I think it could all be solved by just cutting a bit of time out, the running time, 10, 15 minutes, probably wouldn't be much more than that, and then you would think, just as it would start to feel like it was dragging, it would move into the third act and it would all be closing up, but instead you get to that point where it's dragging and then it drags a bit more and then you think, right, come on then, and then it does.
What else have you got?
And then it does kick off and finish and then you think, great, but it does.
And the end does redeem it a bit for me as well, because I was losing it a bit with the film because it's on an insane level, but if you carry on at that insane level, you can't quite keep the momentum going. But I really liked the way that it went, and that perked it up again for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with all those points, but I think the strongness of the concept and the quality of the humour and having such... It seemed like the cast got on like an absolute house on fire, and people generally say as a rule that that's normally something that makes a film bad, but I think definitely here that chemistry definitely showed on screen, and it just seemed like they had a great time, despite the whole thing just being set in a dirty warehouse, supposedly in Boston, but I think it was actually, is he from Cambridge? Some warehouse in Cambridge it was filmed, exactly, but it could be anywhere.
But it's an interesting approach to writing, really, because most of us would say, I haven't got a film in me, whereas his approach is, we've got this idea, and he was actually there, wasn't he, at the preview, and he was talking about how it was made, and a lot of the planning is in the shots, you know, who's stationed where in the warehouse, who can see who, what shot is crossing whose path, and all that kind of thing. So logistically, there's so much planning to do. But I think if you've got a creative brain and a good sense of humour, you can take a nugget of an idea and turn it into something really great, which I think more people would probably be capable of doing if they were given the budget and what have you, because, you know...
You have to build up to that
people
point.
Are funny and would be capable of doing things like that, rather than writing a High Rise or something with more complicated plot and really defined characters. Because they're all wacky and interesting characters, but they're fairly small. Each one is quite small in scope. They don't, apart from just being funny and boinging off each other, they're not that fleshed out. So it's a lot of fun, but a little bit of me wanted a bit more.
Cool.
So scores on the doors, I think I'm going to give it a 3. A fair 3, I think. A lot of fun. I would watch it again, but I don't know how many more times I could watch it again. Maybe once. I
mean, for me, I think I'm going to have to give it 3 as well. I think if he'd asked me in the following month after seeing it, it definitely would have been a 4. And not to make everything a comparison, but Dunkirk is definitely a better film than this. But by the token that you've just given it, I'm much more likely to watch Free Fire 10 more times in my lifetime than I'll ever watch Dunkirk. And that's because Dunkirk feels important, but I don't know how much I would want to keep watching it again. Whereas this feels like something I could chuck on a Sunday afternoon and not necessarily pay 100% attention to it.
I think that's the key, though. I think it's a good bunch of mates, beers, background film, and it would be great for that. But I don't think I could watch it in a cinema again.
Right.
Like glued to every single gunshot, because it's a firework display. it's amazing, but nobody kind of... I read something that said, who watches videos that they make of fireworks displays after they've made them?
true.
Nobody does that, and it's a little bit like that for me. I've had the show and the bombast, and then I'm done.
Yeah, I think for me, I definitely enjoyed it a lot more than that, and I think it's got a lot more replay ability. I think on Monday I'll be going and picking it up, but it feels like I'll be watching it on my own.
I would watch it again, but just in that more relaxed setting where you just enjoy the laughs.
Yeah,
and
but I
don't have
think
to focus
I
too
wouldn't
much.
say. I'd say it's definitely worth watching if it sounds like your type of things. Fun, violence, great jokes and stuff, and yeah, a real recommendation from me, and well worth a watch.
So film number 3 is The Circle, and if you've listened to all of our pods, then you might remember us saying, "Oh, we saw a trailer for this film, The Circle, and we're looking forward to watching it." But it never made it to the cinema, did it?
No. So The Circle is a film starring Emma Watson and Tom Hanks and John Boyega, so 3 big Hollywood names, but somehow this film, in the UK at least, was only released on Netflix and was billed as a Netflix original film, and I thought, I don't remember it being associated with them in the past. Basically, it's had a torrid time being made and being released. I think there was a lot of hype around it at the end of last year, and then I think someone must have seen a cut of it and thought, we can't put that in the cinema.
No.
And I think it did get released in America and absolutely flopped. Came out on Netflix here, which is probably a better place for it because you're not going to feel shortchanged by it. Basically, it's going to be hard to be fair about a film as bad as this.
Yeah. The trailer made it look really good.
Yeah.
But something happened along the way, and it's not great. So basically, Emma Watson plays May, who she's in a dead-end job, and she's from a kind of poorish family in, we don't know where in America. But she basically lands a job at this massive company called The Circle, which is basically
Google.
Yeah, Google. But Google meets Apple meets Facebook.
yeah.
With a big charismatic leader who everybody worships and laughs at his jokes.
That's Tom Hanks.
Yeah, so he's the kind of
Steve Jobs
type, Zuckerberg, whoever.
Jeff Bezos.
But then, there's something sinister about this company.
Well, I wouldn't say it's that. That makes it sound like there's ghouls in the wall.
No.
But it's... If you've seen the TV series Black Mirror, it's kind of portrays this dystopian kind of surveillance feel to it of social media. Do people have any privacy anymore? And are you forced to give up more and more of yourself to get the perks of social media? So exactly, if you've seen the latest series of Black Mirror, it does that job, but well. The story is there for us to be something really interesting, a real cutting social commentary about how the world could go in the next 10, 15 years is there. Like surveillance, all these things that are in people's minds, like things that worry them, but they still want the benefits of social media and stuff. They're proper real world problems that people have now.
And actually genuinely scary. They kind of set it up as going to be as this threat, but then the actual negative things that happen, which are supposed to be the disasters and the tipping point for when it all changes from being this shiny, amazing company, are such weird real life examples and nothing actually to do with selling your data. You are sold to and you have no privacy, but the privacy was just, you might accidentally forget to turn off your camera and film something that you don't want to see. Well, no, it's not that. It's about your loss of privacy and all the scary things that are going on with Google. And I actually do wonder, now this is just a conspiracy theory, whether it was Google that made them change the film, made it go completely shit.
It's just bad. It's made by someone who thinks this is a good story but doesn't understand technology at all. It's like, no offence to anyone's mum, but it's like your mum making a film about these things. Just someone who doesn't quite grasp how these things work and thinks it all sounds cool. So it's like, got to Hollywoodize. It's got to be things that people relate to. But
let's have a car chase.
People are cleverer than this. People will relate to the things that they actually are because they live these things every single day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, as I said, good ideas, but horribly executed to a level of just incompetence that you don't see on the screen very often.
There's somewhere in there could have been a really good film, but it just didn't happen. And I didn't buy Emma Watson as the
human
dead end, working in a crap job, no hope, blah, blah, blah. It's just American. Just really weirdly cast. But then she becomes this golden girl for the company,
Yeah.
for the circle later on, and gets all like speechy and.
See, that
And
kind of
then
works.
I was like, oh, that's why they've cast her. But we'd lost it by then.
Yeah, because all those people played well, apart from her being the dead end. But if she'd been like a high-ranking kind of young executive, you could have got on board with that straight away.
Which the trailer made it seem like she was, because
Yeah.
the trailer's got this really zippy, fast-paced interview, and she's acing it, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is exciting. That was like the highlight of the film.
Yeah, and Tom Hanks, you can also believe as that role, so very charismatic, but you could also see how he would be not everything
Bit
he
creepy.
seems. And well, John Boyega's weirdly used because he doesn't turn up until about halfway through.
Yeah.
Doesn't really have much to do. It's like, well, you've
And
got a
then
good actor.
he's like, I found this stuff,
Yeah.
but we don't know what the stuff is. And then that unravels everything, but it's so weirdly done.
Yeah, it's some real
It's a mess.
real Basil exposition just kind of shoehorned in to try and make some sense of the shower that is going on around it. Yeah, the plot has development issues. All the acting is really subpar, even from people who are good, because I like all the people who are in it, but it makes them look like they're not very good.
And it looks like a TV movie.
Yes,
you know, if they'd put that on at the cinema, you'd be like, who's just shot this on their phone?
Yeah, the graphics aren't very good. There's all the tech stuff, which should be... I mean, it's hard to get tech stuff to look right, which is why only certain brands do so well, because when it looks bad, people think it looks bad. But that's what it looks like. This is meant to be the best company in the world, and it looks like something that a 15-year-old has mocked up in Photoshop in half an hour.
I mean, some things about it weren't that bad. I mean, I thought the complex of the circle looked quite convincing. These sort of compound places and you're expected to do all of your extracurricular stuff there. And I thought that was quite good, how they expect you to participate in everything and be present and be on all these online chats and groups with everything, and they kind of think that you're suspicious if you're doing things on your own or you're not sharing what you're doing. And that whole sharing is caring.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
I thought that was quite good and quite well done, and they kind of had the sinister inkling from that stage, but then that was not the bit that developed into the crescendo of the film, and that was where it should have gone, not kind of random car crashes and completely irrelevant stuff that it was like from another film that had just been put into it.
Yeah, so I completely agree. So there's good ideas in there, and there's little strands of things that if they just positioned it differently, went in different directions, I don't think this ever in anywhere near the state that it is now could have been anything a lot better, but it could have been something that you could have come away with and thought, well, they didn't quite hit the mark. Whereas instead you're thinking they really, really missed the mark with this. So I'm not going to talk about this anymore because, I mean, you can only like beat a dead horse so much.
Yeah.
So I mean,
we've been spoiled a bit by Black Mirror, which does it so well. I mean, the social media episode of that, brilliant.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece.
And it does the terrifying kind of how your life could just fall apart if the whole world was built around social media, just from a few little mistakes. And this tries to do... It's almost like they were halfway through making this, saw that and thought, oh, we're never beating that. Let's just pack it up. So, watch that instead. The first episode of Series 3 of Black Mirror.
Yeah, we'll watch the whole lot, but that is brilliant.
But if you want one that relates directly to this one. So, I'm going to give a score for this, and it is going to be 1 star. And that's 1 star too many, but... No, 1 star. There's enough there to give it 1, because I guess we could give them something 0 if we wanted to. But no, 1 star. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't even recommend it as, oh, it's a laugh, it's a bad film. You'll find yourself just being basically bored for most of it.
Yeah, it's not even funny bad.
Yeah, it's not like Sharknado or something like that, which is, you can properly just have a giggle at because it's so stupid. This is trying to be earnest, it's trying to be clever, and just... It's a stupid person's film. It's not clever at all.
Yeah. I mean, I was half thinking about giving it a 2, but I think that's probably because have we rated anything a 2? We tend to just watch quite decent things, and
I think
most
I
of
gave
them
Alien
get a 3.
2.
Yeah, I think I gave it a 3. Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 1 as well. I don't think it does deserve a 2.
It's a stinker.
Well, we wanted to review a crap one, and now we have.
Yeah, so from now on, we're going to try and do 3 films in an episode. Try and sprinkle in the odd clanger because it makes us laugh. But yeah, thanks for listening. We'll be back again soon.
Yep.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.